Hi, and welcome back to GPA's Innovation Lab in Chicago. I'm Matt Buckley, and I'm excited to be here again with my friend, Mike Blanco.
It's great to be here with you, Matt, today. You know, unlike some of our past presentations where we talked about markets, applications, and products, today's going to be a little bit different. We're going to spend just a moment looking back on the past 2 years, but the real emphasis of today is about best practices to handle change and a focus on the future. So, what now? Surviving change in print.
Yeah, Mike, print survived and is really starting to thrive, but it has been a tough 2 years. All of print suffered. But most of us found ways to survive by making tough decisions and implementing changes we never thought possible. Some excelled by adapting more quickly than others, but everyone was forced to look at their businesses differently and are now managing change on a regular basis.
Yeah, managing change, right? That's the key word. And understanding this is very important and the main reason for our discussion today. Things are on an upward trend and we are climbing out of this deep hole that we've been in, but make no mistake about it. All indications are that it will continue this year. Implementing a change management strategy now is more important than ever. Supply chain issues, manufacturing constraints, and reductions in capacity, along with resurgence of print, were all factors that led to some of the challenge we faced. Let's be brutally honest. It affected all of us. GPA implemented some change management strategies in order to do our very best to service our customers, but it still wasn't without some disappointments. We felt the pain, just like all of you.
Yeah, but so far, the good news is that profit and order volumes are up, and 3/4 of printers are indicating that they're investing in equipment and hiring more employees. Mike, you may even have noticed that some OEMs are selling out of equipment just due to such high demand.
Yeah, I've heard that too. All of these statistics are great news for our industry, but again, those challenges are going to continue. Most printers we have spoken with have ongoing concerns about the 3 Ps. And if you haven't heard about the 3 Ps, it's products, pricing, and people. Trends are showing that product availability will continue to be an issue. This is going to require greater planning and partnership between printer and distributor. GPA has implemented a change strategy of our own to try to alleviate some of the product challenges we continue to face. A lot of you may already have had a conversation with your GPA business development manager about forecasting well into 2022 and beyond. Things like raw materials, labor, and freight pricing continue to rise with no end in sight. Communicating upcoming market changes like these effectively is extremely important. Labor shortages continue to have forced many printers to consider investments in technology, automation, cross-training of employees to continue moving forward. Now, as an employee, this is a great opportunity to expand your skills and be part of the overall solution. All of this has led to discussions among printers about strategies regarding the 3 Ps, right, as well as managing change more effectively.
Yeah, and this is a great time to talk about our strategy for the 3 Ps. So for products, we're forced, and a lot of people are really working hard to reduce SKUs or custom sizes to focus on core items, or unfortunately, sometimes just available inventory. But as you said, stronger strategic partnerships with suppliers, from mills to distributors, to printers to customers, and including a much more disciplined forecasting model in your business. And as we've talked about a number of times, product substitution or even cross-platform technology, taking it off one printing device and moving it to another because a product might be there to meet demand. These are going to continue to be things we're going to have to do on the product side. For pricing, pricing is dynamic, right? Every day. It's no longer static. Our industry has experienced a dramatic shift from the once a year small low single digit price increase where we talk back and forth for a while and get to a number we all liked. We expect that continued price increases in consumables are going to create this opportunity for pricing to continue to be very dynamic. And I think it's time where we're all talking about how our pricing strategy works and how it fits with your business, right? This is a time of change. It's a time to make an adjustment. So as we've looked into and talked about pricing strategy, it's a very interesting conversation. So as market price continues to shift, we have to make sure that our pricing processes allow for us to maintain flexibility and achieve our goals. So if you're out there and you're thinking about that, if your process needs an adjustment, now might just be the opportunity to do that.
Now's a great opportunity to do that. From the people aspect, easing this issue is part people, but it's also part process. With continued uncertainty in the market, involvement is the key to attracting and retaining your employees. The need for all of our teams to support change and at least embrace it shows that the employee experience, the engagement, and the productivity part of it are all tied together.
Yeah.
In addition, process changes, OEM partners and investments in new platforms, automated workflows, and cross-training can help you enhance employee experience engagement as well as improve productivity, and will be the key to attracting and maintaining and retaining talent.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. And when we get to the three Ps, then we start to talk about this idea of how we might manage change. And so as we looked at this, the most common examples given for when a change management strategy is necessary for a company to successfully implement change. Listen to these, just see how you feel. So it would be implementation of a new technology, a merger or an acquisition, a change in leadership, change in an organizational culture, or a time of crisis. So any of that sound familiar? Or?
They all sound very familiar, Matt, yes.
Yeah, and I think before we get into some of the steps of change management and how we can do this and professionalize a little bit, we noted, and it's very interesting as we talk to experts, that time of crisis, which we all just went through, doesn't really require a different strategy. It just changes the timeline or the sense of urgency.
Yeah, it's true. And the change that we see, it doesn't happen in isolation, right? We're all experiencing these issues in print. So business owners, managers, operators, procurement, sales, it doesn't matter, all the way down the line. If you don't have a strategy, change manages people, people don't manage change. So let's be perfectly clear, Matt, right? You and I are not experts in change management, but we're experiencing it here too.
I agree, yep.
So in the conversations we've had with leaders and employees, the question is, did they feel it was more important to develop the perfect system for the company, or that they just implement a system now?
So it's a great question, and it's the question, right? And I think everybody had to adapt and implement a system. But in this question, I think we all agree that it's employ a system now, and by which we really mean develop a process to more systematically manage change. So when we talk to experts about change management, we looked at the major theories. They all vary by level of complexity, but they include 4 basic ideas, and that's where we want to understand, plan, implement, and communicate. So understanding the change, what, how, and why we would need to change, plan, and in planning, part of it too is looking for sponsorship. This is where we're out talking to employees and looking for involvement and getting buy-in, and then implement. We're going to provide training and support and judge against the success criteria we've established. And most importantly, we're going to communicate to everybody why this is happening, but we're going to allow them to let us know back how do they feel about it and how can we all achieve success.
So a lot of great information, a lot of different moving parts.
Right.
So what prevents most people from managing the change successfully?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. So process or lack thereof that we just talked about would be a major obstacle. But when we talked about this, people also shared with us that they just feel that resistance to change is very common. Most often it's built out of fear or culture. So pessimism exists, right? Yes. We can't get around that. And it requires all of us as leaders to acknowledge, to understand, and to address that resistance to change. But in thinking about implementing change, one of the other big keys we have is culture. So culture can also play a role. Some organizations, some companies just don't embrace change or are actually built to push back on it, to slow that process. So I guess the good news is there's something we can all do to make it easier on each other to allow change to happen with our company. So there's an important role for all of us in managing change, and we're all leaders and employees. So for leaders, they're really tasked with clarifying the vision and communicating it effectively, staying connected with their employees all the way through the process. And then most importantly, being accountable to making sure that the change implementation is successful and just being very transparent about the process as they go through. Now, when we're in our roles as employees, we either have to support or embrace change. And those are 2 completely separate ideas, right? Support is ideal. That would mean that you and I, we heard the vision, it was clear, it was communicated effectively, we really believe in what we're doing, and you and I are now going to go work to accomplish change. Embracing change is a bit different. It's really if we didn't see the benefits, if we were resistant to the process, it just means that we have to accept the fact that despite our feelings, change is happening. And I think we felt a lot of that over the last few years, that it wasn't in our control, but we have to go with it no matter what. And at that point, it's really just about not being an obstacle to allowing change to happen within your organization. So I think the good news, and we looked at this, and talked to companies and printers, we've all managed a lot of change. Everybody has developed and refined their processes and even their cultures. Think about the cultural shift of work from home and how prevalent that has become for some of us. So you and I have been fortunate to witness good leadership and even be fortunate to play our parts in being good employees and helping bring about support change. So I think when we talked to printers and employees and leaders out there, now's a good time to review your strategy for people, products, and pricing. Again, the 3 Ps, as well as consider how your company has handled change over this period of time and what improvements you could make to help yourself going into this next year.
It's very true. Like you said, Matt, we've all experienced a lot of this. And I don't think in my 35 years in the print industry, hard to believe it's been that long, I've ever experienced more change in such a short period of time than we have in the last 2 years. I'm always really interested to hear how others in our industry are managing these changes. And today, we're actually going to get that chance. Today's a very special day here at GPA. We get to welcome some wonderful guests and friends live into our lab for the very first time since we built this beautiful space. But before we do, let's take a look at the short video about their company.
About 2008, we purchased Blooming Color. There were printing companies all over. One by one, they just started disappearing. And I felt, you know what, we're gonna have to change something relatively quickly to avoid the same fate. So I started to look around at what companies that seemed to be flourishing, what they were doing. That's when I started to notice HP. We bought our first Indigo in 2009, right after I got back from D-Scoop. When I came out of that, it was kind of like the skies opened up and said, your only option here is to buy an HP Indigo. It was a big decision. Our company had never made a purchase like that. The economy wasn't great, but I had the faith that this was going to work, and best decision we ever made.
I was initially introduced to the PrintOS platform at D-Scoop. We initially made the investment in HP PrintOS SiteFlow because we run a large menu program for a very large food supplier across the United States. The artwork would change, but the volume's very high. And so we looked at SiteFlow initially because we needed to scale quickly with that. And one of the big benefits of SiteFlow for us was the shipping integration. Wallpix initially came to us because they had a photo tile product that they wanted to produce, and they wanted it to be Indigo quality. They thought they were going to do 10,000 tiles a month, and now that's hundreds of thousands of tiles a month within about a 90-day time frame. There's no way that we could have taken that program globally without the aid of PrintOS SiteFlow. HP SiteFlow has helped us expand into new markets because it's scalable. We can take a project and very, very quickly go to really global proportions with that. When you look at a company that's our size, that's still growing and emerging, we really embrace new technology.
It lets us, the small to medium-sized printer, act like the really big guys. There's no question that HP saved our business in 2008. Blooming Color is about its people. Our most valuable resource is our employees. It makes me feel great to know that we're providing them the American dream. As we're successful, they're successful.
So Matt, pretty impressive video about Blooming Color.
Yeah, it's always great to look at Blooming Color and how much they're doing.
So I'd like to welcome our guests in today. So today we have with us Brian Scott, CEO, and Rosemary Bresky-Garvey, President of Blooming Color. Thank you guys so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, good to have you. So I know we were talking, you guys just got back from D-Scoop, and we want to hear about that, but I know, Rosemary, you spoke at D-Scoop as part of the Women in Print panel. Do you want to start us off by telling us a little bit about how that went?
Oh, absolutely. And first and foremost, it was so great to be back with our D-Scoop community and feel the energy from everyone, very forward thinking. But I had the opportunity to be part of a panel of female executives in our industry on International Women's Day, which was March 8th. And gosh, what a fantastic time that was to come together and to share. And whether we were big companies or small companies, or we had the leader of Drupa, who is a woman for the first time in Drupa's history as a part of the panel, just a fantastic conversation, standing room only. And the momentum that came out of that throughout the day and the conversations that we got to continue to have about how female leadership is important in this industry, but then also, gosh, all the opportunities that come for young women entering this industry as well. Just a fantastic tone, again, with the energy of D-Scoop and everything else going on. What a great time.
So I got a little follow-up to that. So the women in print part of it, were there a lot of younger women that you're finding that are coming into our
Yep.
industry?
Absolutely. And what's great about the graphics arts industry as a whole is the opportunities for both STEM and STEAM, right? You take a look at what we do now, because print companies are technology companies.
Right.
So science, technology, engineering, math, and of course the arts to bring in STEAM. And whether you are coming out of high school, a vocational training program, or a college, the opportunities within our industry, whether you're a young man or a young woman, it's just a plethora of new things coming, which is awesome.
That's fantastic to hear, because honestly, Brian, right, our industry is kind of aging. You know, are we not?
Yes, yes. We're going to go with it's hashtag 50-year-old dude.
Yes.
Gotta stop.
It's got to stop. Well, that's great to hear. I'm so excited that you got to be a member of that panel, and it's great to hear about that. But Brian, how's the experience overall? How does the community feel? How are people thinking about right now and where we're going?
Yeah, no, it was really great. We always have used DScoop in the past as kind of a reinvigoration, both ourselves, but then we bring that back to our company and really help kind of push us to the next level, you know, for the next 12 months until the next DScoop. And so not having that for the last couple of years was really hard. I don't know, it was just difficult. You know, we were already going through some trying times, and it was hard not to be able to share that and kind of talk to our peers about best practices. So it was really nice. There was a lot of energy. There was a lot of, I think, positive, you know, forward thinking that was going on there. The fact that there were no equipment at this DScoop, which made it very unique, because that's kind of the first time that's happened, actually, I think, enhanced the experience, because we were able to spend a lot more time in conversation with you know, vendors and our clients. And so I would tell you that from Blooming Colors perspective, we had way more engagement with clients and talking about new business than we ever have at all the DScoops we've attended in the past combined. So it was very positive.
That's fantastic.
Always great to hear.
Absolutely.
All right, so I have a question for you guys. This falls right into some of the things we've already talked about, so it'll be very interesting to get your perspective. How did Blooming Color handle the challenges of the 3 Ps? So products, people, and pricing. And you guys can fight over who wants to take one. But why don't we start with the product one first?
For sure. Brian, you take this one.
Okay. So I actually think it's very interesting. If you go back, you know, pre-pandemic, I would say that the pricing issue was probably in the forefront at that point, right? And then the pandemic happened, and suddenly the people was an issue, right? We couldn't be in the office, and then we had to separate up, and then we started to bring people back. It's been a challenge over the last 2 years to really engage people. The workplace is a little bit different, but now we're in the product, you know, issue, I guess, or the product issue is at the forefront. It's definitely been a challenge, and I think we don't really see an end in sight quite yet. But one of the excellent things that has happened is that our vendors like GPA have really stepped up and said, hey, we're not going to sell paper to new customers. We have to make sure we can support those that have bought from us in the past. So that is really valuable to a company like ours, because we've got growth plans, right? And making sure that we have the allocation available so that we can be confident to go out to our clients and sell products, knowing that we're going to get the paper to then be able to produce it, is really huge. So I think, you know, through this year, through the end of this year into 2023, I feel like we've done an excellent job. Our staff's done an excellent job keeping us stocked with paper, and GPA has done the same. We're not sure what's going to happen next year, right? I think we'll get through this peak season okay, and then come 2023, we'll kind of reevaluate. We'll learn some things. Maybe things will loosen up a little bit, but it kind of sounds like it may not. And then we'll tackle it again next year. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know you touched a little bit on the people side of things. So Rosemary, you want to take the people question?
Yeah,
how'd you guys handle that part of the process over the last 2 years?
Absolutely. I have to brag on our team at Blooming Color, because they've just been phenomenal through this whole experience. And as we're coming out of this now and we're able to breathe, it seems like, for a second, what we really did was retool with them. So we no longer have silos at Blooming Color. So if you were only on the die cutter, you were only on the coder, now you have other skills. Now you run a laminator. Maybe now you're doing handwork. On the client service side, that team's just been phenomenal, because they are in the plant every single day. And so when when we say we're proud of our team and you get the best experience at Blooming Color, that's because everyone is on board rowing in the same direction. And we think that that's a really great opportunity for our staff too, because they are learning additional skills they might not have had before. So the more that you can contribute to the company, obviously it's better for the company, but we've been able to give raises because people have these new skills, and to be able to recognize the work they do and how appreciative our clients are is just, again, phenomenal. And so we really tip our hats to them, because we were down to 8 of us when everything had to shut down. And now as we've brought people back and we've actually done some new hiring as well, again, everyone rowing in the same direction, very forward thinking. And the culture of Blooming Color has changed a lot for the positive in the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so the last one is pricing. You alluded a little bit to it,
Yeah.
Brian, at the beginning, and how pricing in the past was more of a conversation that took place, but now it seems like that's a conversation that we seem to have with customers,
Right.
and not so much even from our side, from the products, but we think about it all the way to the end user, right? So you guys have to deal with your customers, and then they have to deal with their customers. So
For sure.
how have you guys handled the price increases that we've seen over the last 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, it's been an issue, and I think it will continue to be one. But in the past, we've got a lot of contracts with our customers that only allow for a price increase every 6 months or once a year. Those days, I think, are gone, right? We have to kind of re-engineer those contracts a little bit. And so what Blooming Color has done is really we absorbed a lot of that price increases in the beginning because we kind of felt like we had to. But we started to have the conversation with our customers about, hey, these aren't normal price increases of 6% once a year. It's 6% every 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and we don't really see it stopping. So we get them to the table sooner, then we can have those conversations, and I think that they're actually pretty open to it. They all see what's going on. They see how the supply chain is affected up and down, across not just the United States, but everywhere, and every type of product. So I think they're open to the conversations, right? So we're able to pass those price increases on. We try to do them a little larger chunks so that we can kind of absorb maybe the next 1 or 2 that are coming down the road and not have to have that conversation quite so often. But I think, again, the clients have been pretty open to it, and that's great. And those that haven't, we sometimes might have to part ways because it's like, look, this is the reality of the situation. Is I think it's really important to be transparent, right, about that, so that they understand these are our true costs. This is not just us trying to make more money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're much easier conversations today, knowing that, like you said, this is inclusive of all products across all different types of industries. It's not just ours. So it's not like we're the only ones that are trying to push those through. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So great to hear how you guys are handling the 3 Ps. And we also talked a little bit about change management. I know you guys went through a lot, like all of us in this period of time. So you went down to 8 employees, you're on your way back up, things are going well. So what kind of change management strategies or processes or improvements did you guys put in place or maybe share?
Sure, I have to laugh a little bit thinking back on your opening comments about the strategy is these 3 things. And Brian and I did not have a whiteboard at Blooming Color. We did not sit down on March 17th of 2020 and say, what's our strategy for change management while this thing is unfolding?
Right.
But we've always been really proud of the fact that we've been very nimble as a company. And so the ability with our team to really talk about what are we doing and how can we do it better, that has really just been the overarching conversation of the last 2 years. We have a big wall in our office in our client service area that literally says be better. And that is really the mantra that we run with every day. And sometimes we jest about that when there's an error, but that is truly what it's all about. And so as we focus not only on our people and giving them additional skills and training them to do additional things, we've also focused on automation. We've taken a program, for example, that we may have printed for years and looked with our team and talked with our team about how can we do this more efficiently. And so whether it's employing some additional strategies, we use and focus Switch as the backbone of automation at Blooming Color, or whether it's doing something that we've never thought of before, or it's another piece of equipment that maybe we've had to add during this time. The whole reason behind that is obviously to be more efficient with lesser people that we have now. So we were as many as 52 or so at the beginning. We went down to 8 during the shutdown, like I referenced, and then now we're back about 38, 40.
Yeah.
So it's great. Again, brought some people back. We're able to do some new hires. But again, the focus at the end of the day has really been about how can we do things better and more efficiently.
Yeah, when you think about that, the revenues from 2019 and I would say 2020 2022, if you kind of take the last 12 months, are about identical, but we're now 10, 12 less people. So it's how did we do that, right? And a lot of it, I think, are changes that should have happened prior to the pandemic, but we were kind of the fat cat, didn't really think about that stuff, right? Everything's going great. We have the blinders on, but it's really important, I think, now having gone through that we kind of look at things a little differently, right? As you start to bring people back, it's again, the silos are gone. How do we use these people more efficiently? What other pieces of equipment can we put in place? Automation can we put in place to really change how efficient we are, so that, if we get to the point where we are back to 50 people, the revenues are much greater from, the output that we're getting from those people. So that's kind of the plan.
Yeah. So maybe we didn't have a strategy written down, but we certainly have a different strategy moving forward.
Well, it's great to hear, and it kind of plays into my next question. Some of the things that you've alluded to with technology and investment. So, we saw that you invested in a new digital press last year, and if some of you didn't pick up on it in the video, Brian seems to have this knack of going out and making heavy investments during times of crisis, because his original purchase of the Indigo back in 2008, 2009, if a lot of you remember, was a little bit difficult. So I find it kind of interesting that you've done the same thing now.
We're big fans of spending money when you're not supposed to.
So can you share a little bit about that thought process and what kind of drove you to make that decision again now, especially?
Yeah, well, originally it was just kind of a time for our business to pivot, right? We were a quick printer for a long time, and it was really making the investment in the higher end digital equipment, and the timing was just kind of the timing. It needed to be done, so we all jumped together, and it worked out really well. Now it's more driven by the need for throughput, right, and efficiency. So we kind of knew we were looking at a new B2 press to kind of help our replace our existing 10,000. And so originally we were looking at a 12,000 to kind of go with the 12,000 that we already have. And we started to hear about this other press, this 100K. And so we went to Atlanta to look at it. And I think as soon as we saw it, we were like, oh, this is the answer, right? The amount of throughput that I can get from the exact same amount of floor space is literally 30 to 40% greater. And so we knew we had to make that investment. And then on the small press side, we have two small format presses as well. We had one that was just tired. It had been
the original
12 years old. It had 160 million impressions on it. And it just didn't work as reliably as it needed to. So we stepped into a new 7K on that side, and immediately that impact of that press was actually the most dramatic. I think it immediately, with the non-jamming and the issues, the uptime tremendously changed our business to be more efficient, through the finishing process, because they were getting printing sooner, and just the whole thing. So again, we're able to, I think, get more things done during the day because we're more efficient in the press room. So that was really the main.
It's got to be pretty uplifting for your employees too, to know that you guys are still making those types of investments during this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is like a little bit of a follow-up question. So that's the press side of things. What other things did you guys do? Infrastructure, human resources, people, technology, in order to, kind of bridge the gap over the last 12 months or so?
Yeah, our focus really remains on automation through that time, and now as we continue on and we look at new opportunities again coming out of D-Scoop. Because again, we have these tools, we need to make sure we're using them the right way, but we need to have the buy-in of our team, like you had referenced earlier. And so we are more collaborative in those conversations. Again, what are you doing today? How do you think we can do it better? And that's not all easy, right? Change is never easy. We all know that to be a fact. But it comes down to, okay, so we'll make this change and we'll try that. But then we're also, again, able to be nimble. And so if that didn't quite work, then we'll change it again, and that's okay. And we'll find the best way to do that to make sure that we continue to move forward in the most efficient manner.
Yeah, I think our employees, now that we've had those conversations, they feel empowered to come to us and say, hey, you know what, I think we might be able to do this a little better. Maybe there's a business card program, and if we organized it differently and switch, we could print it in the same order that it ships, and it just makes it more efficient all the way through to the back end, So it's just, that's one example of things that I think we've noticed and empower the employees to help us, be better as a
Yeah,
team.
for sure.
Yeah.
And just being present with them, and then to your point, them being more empowered to talk to us about that. Again, there's no more silos, and that certainly means between management and the rest of the team as well. We're just a team at the end of the day. Nobody sits in an office all day long.
Yeah. No, and we joke when you say I didn't have my whiteboard, Matt, and I wasn't charting this out, and it seems to me like we talked about everybody had to make the change, right? And you did have a plan, and it's a good plan, and I think the key to it every time we've talked about it is you brought your employees closer, right? You guys are really collaborative, you're really working at it, and they support your change, they support this, and you guys have help them see that, like you just said, they support things they create. So when they find those, so that's fantastic. Absolutely. And it's so great to hear about that. But so what do you think is the outlook here? Your guys' outlook on the future of print? Where are we going? How's this going to go? And most importantly, how far out are you guys looking? How we're into a different stage here. How far out
we really are? Yeah, and I think today I would tell you we're looking way further down the road than maybe we used to. So we're looking well into 2023, maybe even kind of into 2024. We had conversations today about that. So I think it's important because of the product issue, right? Yeah. We want to make sure we can supply our clients with what they need, and it's hard to do that when you're growing, in this environment. So so some of that is stocking up on paper a little bit more, building the inventory a little more than we used to try to prepare for what's coming, I guess. That ties up a lot of resources, but I think it's necessary because what we really can't have happen is come October, November, when things really pick up, oh, sorry, we can't get your products out today because we don't have the substrate, right? That is something that we just really won't allow. And I don't think it's going to get to that point. You guys won't let it, right?
Well, it's a good point. And product substitution has been a big discussion this last year too. And I'm sure with some of your contractual work versus other day-to-day jobs, how flexible do your customers seem to be when it comes down to product substitution?
Much more so than they ever used to be before. So it certainly has come to, we've had clients who are very specific about a certain spec, and it has to be this paper, and this is who you have to buy it from. And now those conversations are, well, what do you have that's in the same weight? What is available today?
I don't care what color it is.
That's right. Can it get it out in the mail? That's exactly right. And again, as we've been transparent with our clients about the challenges that we face, because they see the same thing from their own supply chain challenges, and they, in whatever industry they happen to be in, they understand that. And I do think that they appreciate the transparency in those conversations. And we will always do our research when we come to someone and we say, we have an issue and we can't get X, but we can get Y. And then they say, well, what about anything else? And we're like, I promise you, we have exhausted everything else. This is what we can do today. So.
That's awesome. And I can't thank you guys enough for being here. It's been so fun to collaborate on this project and spend some time with you, and your guys' openness to sharing this information with not just us, but everybody is watching the broadcast. So I know social media is very important at GPA. We're very active on it, and I know you guys, we've been talking about some of the plans you have for Blooming Colors social media. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
For sure. We admittedly are our own worst marketers, and because we want to make sure our clients are taken care of. But again, as we kind of come out of this and we look to be again a bit more forward thinking, a resurgence a little bit of social media is exciting for us. So you'll see a little bit more of us on the socials. But what we're really excited about is we have plans to do some additional content on a YouTube channel, which is cool. We, for a long time, have kind of been like a very quiet company about what we do and how we do it. And so we decided we probably need to be a little louder in that space. And so what we have plans for are videos about how things work, having our operators involved, some of the things that we do in conjunction with HP, or we take care of our presses prior to HP getting there, and some of the secrets that we might have. But then also talking about the actual work that comes off of those presses as well. Lots of times on great GPA stock. But again, these great concepts that our clients come up with, the agencies that we work with, there's still very creative projects happening all across all industries. And so for us to talk a little bit more about it is exciting to us. So more content coming soon in 2022 from Blooming Color.
Yeah, we have a lot of really great employees that are very knowledgeable in the space, and our I think our service numbers from HP, they've told us anyway, are very, very low. Like we don't call service very often. We don't need to, because our team is really good at fixing problems. So I think if we kind of record some of that and share it as a resource for people that are in the industry that are, maybe dealing with some press issues that need a fix now and can't wait for service, there'll be a little library of things they can, at least go to and always ask us.
That's great.
It helps.
Yes.
Well, like Matt said, we can't thank you guys enough for all the time and commitment that you have dedicated to being with us today in the lab live. We love having people in here with us. This is the first time, and we look forward to doing this many more times in the future. So maybe you guys will come back again.
We would love to.
Before we transition to the next phase of today's presentation, we're going to put up a slide on the screen so that you have access to Brian and Rosemarie's Blooming Color social media platform information in case you want to reach out to their company and learn more about who they are and what they do.
So this whole thing so far, just great to be back with people. I don't think, I know we've done a number of these over this last few years. There's been a lot of change. The big one for me here is that we're here with real people. So when we first did our first one, and I don't think people know this, we have 3 friends here behind the camera who are great, and they've done a lot of make us look really good. But the very first one we did in this whole situation was in a giant empty building, right? There was nobody working here, right? And today we're surrounded, you can't see it, but we're surrounded by employees who are taking orders and shipping boxes and doing all that great stuff. And so it was so fun to have people back. I mean, we were talking yesterday, Prince of People business, right? And it's great to be with people, so.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Matt. You know, having people in the lab like this brings a whole different dynamic and energy to what we do. It helps us. We feed off of each other pretty well, but it's really good to have other people in the building with us that we can continue to feed off of. And, you know, you heard their story, right? You heard Brian's story about how they got started with HP, and they continue to partner with HP over the years in order to help continue to grow their business. We want you to keep in mind, though, that there are hundreds of stories like that around all the other OEM technology that GPA does partner with very closely. So companies like Canon, Konica Minolta, Landa, for example, and many others. We service a lot of our customers that have this technology. So, you know, it's just great to hear that there's a lot of success stories like that out there. And we can't thank them enough for coming in and sharing it. So it's great. You know, I just love it. I love being here.
Yeah, so things, Mike, are just looking up. Printers are very optimistic. We're all managing challenges in a better way and more strategically than we ever have. So I just feel great.
Yeah, I do too. I do too, Matt. And, you know, again, the orders and the profits are up year over year, and the trends continue to move in the right direction, despite all of the challenges that printers continue to face and manage. As you heard Brian and Rosemarie talk about all the things that they had to adapt to in order to make their company successful over the last, 24 months during the times that we were in. So Matt, some of your last thoughts before we move on to the question and answer phase of today's presentation.
Yeah, what a great conversation. And I think my favorite part, you said it earlier, that you manage change or change will manage you. And I think a lot of us definitely managed it effectively, and Blooming Color is a great example of that. They joke with me again about having the whiteboard or the strategy. They definitely had a strategy. They certainly did understand what was going on, plan for it, implement, and communicate. They brought their team closer. They definitely worked through that, and it seems to me that they're building on that change as they go. So we want to understand and remind everybody that those pieces are there, and we can make some great steps forward by employing them. So also know our roles as leaders and employees. We've all talked about, we're both leaders and employees. When we're in the leadership role, no matter whether we're leading a small team or a $100 million company, we're talking about clarifying and communicating, staying connected to our employees. One of my favorite things they said is there's no more silos at Blooming Color, which we hear a lot as we get out there. Stay connected, be accountable. They talked about being transparent, not just with their team, but with their customers. Again, Prince of People business, and we have to do that. So again, and then when we're shifting roles and we're wearing our employee hats, we have to remember that we should be working to support these changes. And they had some great examples, and I know other printers have shared fantastic ones with us as we've looked at how people have successfully managed all this change. And if we're still a little resistance, we remember that we have a role, and that role is to embrace the change. And I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Great thoughts. For me, the 3 Ps really are the big part of it. And there's a lot of ways that we can look at this in a positive light. And you heard Brian and Rosemarie talk about the people aspect, right? So the people and the processes that they implemented, it was really good to hear that, to invest in your people.
Yes.
Really changes the way their mentality is about, the company, what they're doing, and their involvement. So again, keeping people involved in what you do, regardless of how big or small your company is, whether it's 9 employees, like Brian and Rosemarie had said, and they're growing it back
back to 40,
back
right?
to 40.
Yeah.
That took a lot of effort, and it took a lot of involvement in the investment of their people.
I agree.
And then the product side of it, right? There've been some challenges, but again, taking and relying on those partnerships that you've built and continuing to forecast, look forward, get involved with your distributors and the people that you buy from in order to make sure that you're in a good place come the end of this year and beyond. Because as you heard Brian say, they're looking at this lasting potentially well into 2023. So yeah, who knows?
Right.
And then the pricing side of it, as you alluded to, Matt, the dynamic part of this. No longer is this a, hey, I want to call you today and we're going to place an order and, what's the price? And then tomorrow or next week, we want to order the same thing. Right. We expect it to be the same price.
Right.
It's not static anymore. It's very dynamic, and people have to realize that it's time to evaluate your situation regarding pricing and adjust it if necessary. And again, just back to that forecasting thing, people that are looking to spot buy paper right now for jobs, it's going to be very, very difficult. So I encourage you to speak very frequently with your GPA business development manager to try to stay ahead of the product part of this.
Yeah, and I think that's just a great wrap up to what we've done here today. Just want to say that as always, we at GPA are here. We have resources and we're here to support you with all of this going on through the next year. We just want to give a quick shout out to our marketing team who does just such a great job with putting on this event. They're standing here behind the cameras cheering us on as we go right now, but also on social media, they do a fantastic job. I hope you saw this on LinkedIn. Why don't you follow us on LinkedIn? You can find Mike, myself, Craig, Marianne, Jessica, all of our business development managers, and see what GPA is up to all the time as we provide more content like this. I will reference a couple others just for our friends in the Southeast Territory. I'm a big fan of Pinterest. But I think that you prefer Instagram, maybe the
Instagram innovation pick of the week.
That's fantastic. So I'm still going to stick to Pinterest. Why don't we move to question and answers and see what people thought of our presentation here today? Oh, we have two. All right, so GPA.
We'll let you go ahead. Let's read the first one.
Hashtag 50-year-old dude needs glasses. How have recent world events affecting supply chain? So GPA is part of a global group, and I think it's been very interesting. The Fedrigoni group is based in Italy, but we have facilities and sister companies all across the world. I think the biggest thing has to be freight. The availability of containers and of shipping containers, and I know. Brian and Rosemarie talked about forecasting and kind of how that works and how we take care of them. And what I do want to say is we have a procurement team and a lot of people behind us that literally work right behind this wall that spend time tracking where those ships are in the water. Yeah. They can tell you at any one time where they are, how many days out they are, what port they're going to hit, and how they come in. So
it's been interesting the past year at least, hearing them talk about how much they've learned about freight and products coming into different ports and how they need to navigate all that. So it has been very challenging, and they're doing their best every day.
Right. And in addition, one of the things we're facing, and it's unfortunate, we have, economic issues that are facing us. We had the virus issue that's facing us. We're facing, a turmoil in Europe at this point. There are some supply component issues that are now becoming a factor in that. A lot of power and pulp come out of that region. So if you're coming from Russia into Europe, a lot of that is they send a lot of pulp in and they send a lot of power in. So it is creating some challenges, and people are looking to kind of how to broadcast and make that work. So we watch that regularly, and it's part of our strategy in planning for how we would meet the forecast that somebody has given us for how we'd go through that. So Do you want to take this next one?
Yeah, what do we have here? With supply challenges persisting, what best strategies can printers employ? So again, we talked a lot about supply chain issues. We talked a lot about shortages of materials. We talked a lot about, Brian and Rosemarie saying how they have contractual work where, somebody expects a certain paper. Again, the biggest thing I think at this point in time, if you're a customer or an end user, is to be flexible and open to substitutions of products, because that's where you're going to be successful in a time like this when you just may not be able to get the products that you're used to. So it's a time to, again, stay very well connected to, us here at GPA, your business development manager, and to try to understand and identify what is available in case this is not, or if you're used to buying this, what is something else that's comparable that you'd be able to offer your customer. It was really good to hear Rosemary say that, prior to them even going to a customer with the news that, hey, we're not going to be able to really get you this, there's this other option or this other option, and we have taken every step in our power to try to find what you're looking for, and this is the best thing that we have for you. And I think customers really appreciate the transparency, as she said, right? To be able to go to them and truthfully say, this is where we are, and just give them the option.
Yeah, and I think there's two questions here that I actually kind of steered to Blooming Color, and fortunately, I think we can answer them because of the conversations we've had in preparation to this. So the first one was, with substitutions, are customers having issues when the alternative is higher priced? And we asked a very specific question about that to Brian and Rosemary yesterday, and they laughed, right? They smiled and they said, it's situationally dependent, right? It depends on the period of time. There's a trust factor right there that Rosemary talked about with understanding and their openness, and they shared, with us some of the tools they use to be very open with their clients, including showing them some actual prices of products. And I think people accepted some of them and were willing to take what was available to complete their project, and some people chose to move on, and I think they handled that very professionally and separated that way. But I didn't ask the follow-up question because I'm assuming some that might have moved on actually came back. And yes, the answer is yes, they did actually return, and I assume accept the higher price and the original timeline. So again, I think the partnership in all of this, and we said it twice today, we said it yesterday when we were talking about this, print is a people business, and those relationships, we've talked about partnerships with us and partners through distribution to the mill and all the way down the line. And you've been in calls, and we spend time talking with end users. A lot of printers will take us to their customers, we'll meet their customers, and we'll help with these solutions. So all along the chain, kindness is a superpower and the best weapon in these situations. So
it is. And just one last question here, and we've heard this a lot over the last year, probably two, as the pandemic hit, and certain segments of our industry were hit harder than others. We found that people had to kind of transition and bring on maybe different vertical markets than they typically would have run, different types of work and jobs, and whether you were in education and now you're going to go into hospitality or vice versa. So I'm just going to kind of reach to Brian and Rosemary off camera here. Did you guys end up having to, did you shift some of your applications to different markets in order to kind of fill some of the need?
We did a ton of event printing, right? So when my event stopped in March of 2020, that was really where we saw the shift. And so then it was retooling. So, okay, so now if you're not going to a trade show, are you sending a gift, a package with all of this ancillary collateral inside? We did a lot more kitting of that kind of thing to still get people a tangible experience.
That's a great answer.
So, and I know she was coming in off camera, which I love, but I think so they did a lot of event printing prior to that. And when that transitioned, it forced them to shift into some different markets that they did.
But it was good because she alluded to the fact that even though the events were not taking place, these people that would have had the events were figuring out a different way to reach these people. So through some of the packaging and sending them little kits of stuff to just keep them engaged was super important, because now obviously when the events are now starting to come back, it brings in that whole nother aspect that it's gonna stay there, whereas before they might have just lost it and it might have never come back to them. So you found a way to keep those customers engaged, and now that things are starting to reopen again, and now
you have both pieces of it.
You got both pieces now, which is fantastic. So
I think we have one last question. It was another Blooming Color question, and when we talked about automation, and I think we had a good conversation about automation. The question was really, what are they considering as areas of opportunity to continue automation? And I know it's to me, it was workflow that they were talking about. When Brian was alluding to even the processes within it, they're looking at a front to back, in the front door, out the back door, automating that so that you can have the skilled employees doing the printing process, the pieces that they need to do. And I think they were talking yesterday about their fantastic team, but also their fantastic customer service team, and how some of that automation has freed them up to be better at working with their customers on things that customer service should be working on them, and then everybody gets the opportunity as they flow through. So I think they talked about a continued automation. I know they alluded to some technology, two big pieces of equipment just hit their floor, but when they're talking, they were very open in sharing, but I think when they're talking about 2024 and beyond, I don't think they're done considering equipment. So
No.
Yeah, I think throughput, they have more opportunity than they have paper right now, which would be a good answer.
And the technology part is really interesting to me, because in years past, we would have looked at somebody investing in technology to streamline processes as a way to maybe do away with as many people as they have, right? So cutting down workforce to be more efficient. These days, I see people investing in technology and automation in order to help them bridge this challenge that we're in now with this labor shortage of people as well, right? They're taking their skilled people who have stuck by them through thick and thin and giving them all these tools to make the company be able to continue to grow still, and yet not have to add a bunch more people back into the mix to do so. So very positive outlook for Blooming Color, and I think for the rest of our industry as well.
Yep, and I think that brings us to a close. So thank you so much for joining us today. As always, it's great to be here with Mike and with our friends from Blooming Color and our marketing team and all of you as we talk about what we have here and are able to do for you at GPA. So I'll let you have the last word, Mike.
Yes, no, thanks again for joining us, everyone. And we look forward to bringing more content to you direct from our beautiful lab here in Chicago.